So there's this guy named Dwarkesh Patel. He's basically a San Francisco turbo nerd who has a podcast where he talks to AI researchers. And he recently posted, does everyone secretly feel that if you went back to college now, you could learn so much faster, better, and deeper? And that your 18-year-old self kind of wasted the opportunity? This tweet was responded to by Gabriel Peters, who is actually a researcher at OpenAI. And he originally comes from Sweden. By the way, I'm pretty sure he works on the Sora team, so you may have seen him all over the Sora app if you've been looking. He's one of the first cameos, and there's a lot of videos of him. And I thought his response was really interesting and nailed something about motivation that I never really understood. He said, 3 years ago in Sweden, I was thinking, if I worked at OpenAI, I would have unlimited motivation and never waste time again. Now I work there, and none of my brain's promises about motivation were true, and never will be. Rant about how people trick themselves about motivation. And I think this is a really interesting point because he touches on something here that I've definitely felt before. He says, I've had the exact same thought as Dwarkesh. I think I tricked myself that I would suddenly be motivated to learn. Here are some thoughts about getting out of motivational paralysis and how brain consistently lies about motivation. And this is interesting because I feel like there's been times in my life, specifically when I've had jobs, I've been like, if I just didn't have a job and I could spend all my time chasing my goals, I wasn't distracted by having to work. It takes up too much mental energy. Then I'd have the motivation, and every day I'd get up, I'd work towards my goals, and I'd make them happen. And a really weird thing happened where I was working in advertising in 2019, and I hated it so much that I ended up just quitting. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I quit. COVID hit in 2020. I actually ended up being unemployed for like 2 years. So I had 2 years where I wasn't working. And I noticed, all those ideas that I had about how I would work towards my goals and do all these things if I just wasn't working, turns out they weren't true. Turns out I wasn't any more motivated, and it wasn't really any different when I didn't have a job. Which is so funny because now that I have a job again and I've had one for a few years, I think the same thing. If I just didn't have the mental space of my job, then I would work on things. Then I would do things. And I'm just not sure that's true. So let's unpack this. What does Gabriel say? The motivational speeches or courses we see online are way worse than brain rot. Everyone tricks themselves that there's some secret access to unlimited motivation that has to be attained to do great things in life. Turns out these videos or content are just hijacking your brain into a pleasant one-day feeling of excitement. You might get started on whatever random thing you come up with to reach greatness, only to discover the next day that all the excitement is gone. And I've definitely had this too. And he goes on to talk about how this is obvious in hindsight because this is just an emotion. You're just feeling excited, but that won't last, right? The state that you're in after watching a motivational video is just an elevated state of emotion. It's just an emotion, and emotions come and go all the time. And so this idea that you've unlocked something just because you feel excited about it, you know what you're going to do with your life, it's probably not that reliable because it's just the feeling of being excited about something. It's not actually real motivation. He says, this is universal. It happened to me 50 times before I got a job. I'd spend all night grinding something completely random as if I had a new insight that would give me unlimited motivation forever. And the day after, when it's all gone, I'd think, surely I'm doing something wrong. Why couldn't I sustain that motivation, right? Like, that's so relatable. And so he says, whatever you feel most days in terms of motivation is what you will always feel on average for the rest of your life. And that's why you need to commit to things that hold you accountable. Universities are a great way to be accountable. Being an employee is even better. You work on guaranteed economically valuable work, so you actually know you're learning something people want to pay for. I'm not totally sold on the whole economically valuable thing. Whatever. I mean, it's an interesting point, but I do think that the system of accountability is a really interesting point. And especially this idea that however motivated you feel on an average day is how motivated you can expect to feel for the rest of your life. I don't want to say regardless of circumstance, but I think a lot of times these ideas of, if I just had this, like he talks about, if I just worked at OpenAI, or if I just didn't have a job, if I didn't have that mental weight, then I would do the things that I don't do today. And I think it's a lot more realistic to say, how motivated do I feel on the average day? What are things that I can actually get myself to do regularly? And what are things that I really struggle to get myself to do? And I think by understanding that, you can come up with much more realistic ideas of how you will accomplish things. Whether it is saying, I'm going to lean into what I actually can get myself to do every day and what I actually feel motivated to do, or at least don't feel like I dread or have to force myself to do. I think that's one system. I think being accountable is a huge one, whether that's to a person, to a situation, putting yourself in places where there would be consequences if you didn't do something, right? Because so much of us, like he says here, everybody's conclusion is just, I'll learn this myself at home. He says it's impossible for 95% of people because the lack of guidance makes it so you have zero idea what to do. I would more say it's hard because you're just not accountable, right? Oh, I'm going to do this. Well, what happens if you don't do it? Nothing, right? And so really, it's changed the way I've thought about motivation, because I've had this exact same experience where I get really excited about something and I feel like I burn out on it very quickly. And then I don't follow through and I don't finish it. And then I think, oh, if I just had more motivation, if I just had more willpower, then I would make this thing happen. But I suck. But it's actually just not a realistic understanding about what motivation is, and not realizing, oh, I was just excited about something. And excitement doesn't last. But I can think about, well, what can I actually get myself to do each day? And what do I actually find interesting? That, I think, is such a better way. So this has really changed the way that I think about what I want to do with my time and what is actually realistic for me to try to achieve. And how can I set up my life in a way that I am accountable and that there are actually consequences to doing the things I want to do? And how can I set up my life in a way so I'm not just relying on that excitement of a new idea, or I don't have to watch motivational videos 24/7 to get myself going, but are the things I actually enjoy beyond like the, oh, this is going to change my life or this is going to change the world type of excitement. So this is the thread of what I learned from these AI guys. I thought it was pretty interesting. I'd be interested to hear what you think about it. Thanks for watching. See y'all later.